Okay.
Might have to think about some things.
Oh yeah, yeah. Don't worry
I'm a good
about it.
answer, but yeah.
Take all the time you need. Take all the. Don't yeah. I'm here with Connor Eats Pants. He's a live streamer on Twitch, also a YouTuber. Connor, why do you think people watch Twitch?
Oh man, I mean, it depends on the stream and the person. I think for most, what you would describe as Twitch personalities that aren't specifically esports player. I mean, obviously, if you're a good player, people will watch to see good gameplay, but I don't think that that's what makes Twitch Twitch. I think like engaging personalities is what drives the platform for the most part. Like that's why you see the Faces of Cider, Pokimane, Tim the Tapman, Dr. Lupo, people like that that are very distinct personalities and people. So it's definitely the personalities, but I think the live streaming nature compared to YouTube makes you feel more that you're a part and involved in the stream, which is a more interactive experience, obviously, than watching a YouTube video and commenting. When it's a stream and the streamer is interactive with their chat, it's a much more engaging environment, and I think for a lot of people it catches attention a lot easier. I know it does for me. I started streaming because I enjoyed watching streams and was like, oh, I can do that. I like doing stuff like this. But like just the chat room environment itself, kind of when you're in a big Twitch chat and it's almost like a mob mentality, there's something kind of fun about that. That's just memeing around, messing around. There's something fun in that with streamers that have chat rooms like that. But for smaller streamers where it's much more directly interactive and talking like a conversation, I've always not been as comfortable in those streams, but I know that there's definitely an audience for that.
You are someone who has seen a lot of growth on your channel, kind of transitioning from a smaller streamer to what would you say, like a medium, big size streamer now?
I'm up there now for sure. It's weird to think about, but yeah, it's everything keeps growing. But it's yeah. I would consider myself a pretty big streamer at this point.
And why do you think viewers of yours are drawn to you over other channels?
That's a question that I struggle to answer myself sometimes. But from what I can gather, I think I do a better job than most at engaging with the chat and reading the chat while playing and keeping the chat involved as opposed to my gameplay or people that I'm talking to being the focus. I think a lot of other streamers are either good at the game or they're playing with others or they're creating some really unique, not before seen content. Whereas me, I don't really feel like I'm doing that. I think what I'm just doing is kind of, I don't want to sound full of myself, but I'm kind of doing what streaming originally was to like its fullest, which is playing a game. I may not be good, trying to entertain while keeping the chat engaged and involved and reading the chat, actively keeping it a main part of and focus of my stream. I think a lot of streamers now, they feel the need to like put like a face cam on the stream, to have events going on all the time. With me, I'm just playing new games or games that I like to play and talking to the chat and trying to crack jokes. And it's just a kind of formula that just works. And it doesn't really get stale like other things might, I think, which keeps my viewers around more as opposed to like switching for the next fad, I think.
You are unique in the sense that maybe even similar to like Lyric or something. You don't use face cam, and yet you have this very interactive relationship with your audience. How do you think not having a cam impacts that? What are the like the positives versus maybe some of the negatives, or like what kind of unique opportunities does that create for you?
Yeah, when I was a smaller streamer, it was definitely primarily negative. No one really has any incentive to click on your stream beyond title at that point, because obviously, a face is a way to engage the stream when you're not saying anything. And so that's why ever since, even when I was streaming to 5 people, I was always trying to talk and just get used to continually talking and filling in the dead air, which is kind of a secret to Twitch that not many people talk about or pay attention to how important that is how good you need to be when you're not talking to chat. Obviously, once you're a bigger streamer, you're always going to have that chat there to bounce off of. But there's still an element of being able to fill in dead air yourself, where with a cam, it's not as expected of you. And I think to challenge yourself to stream without a cam it can make people a better streamer and make you better at understanding what you need to do at certain times. And it also, on my scale, now that I'm a big streamer, I mean, I don't know like the science of comedy, but obviously there's physical comedy that you can get. You can only get if you see somebody's face and see them physically reacting to something. I feel like when I don't have a cam, not that it's easier, not that like I'm faking certain things, but I can give like a more exaggerated reaction out of my voice, almost like voiceover work, that with cam it would come off as ingenuine. You can put on more of a show in certain ways without a cam, but you can also with a cam. It's a push and pull. It's definitely a different kind of streaming.
How do you think viewers feel different about when you don't have a cam? How do you think that changes their experience?
Man, I mean, I haven't thought about that, but when you say it, the first thing that comes to my mind is it almost makes me feel like more on like the same level. Whereas if there's like a cam, it's almost like that's the person. They're like a celebrity on the screen. Like we're all here for them. Like I feel like maybe in some way, not having a cam makes it more of like a collaborate. Like you feel more involved. Like you're active. Like you're seeing your chat messages go on the screen with other people. It's like this isn't just watching Connor. This is a group of people enjoying this and making the stream happen.
Do you feel like you have a more community-oriented style of streaming?
I do. I think, well, it depends on the definition of community. I think that there are streamers that are very community-focused, constantly doing community events and stuff like that. Whereas me, like, I just try to, like, keep an eye on it and I remember the kind of jokes certain people make and know, like, the chatters that post more emotes or are more serious and sweet or stuff. But I don't know. It's hard to answer. I mean, I would say that growing my stream community was a big focus and like getting people into a Discord and stuff and keeping them around. But at the same time, I also don't think I'm one of those people that overdoes it in certain ways, because I definitely think there are people that overdo it where it's like super nice, wholesome, kind of lovey-dovey stuff on Twitch that it just strikes me the wrong way. I'm just trying to have a good time, and I understand that other people are too, I think is the main thing.
Do you feel in any sense that not having a cam has limited how open you can be with your viewers or the type of relationship you can have with your viewers? Or do you feel like it's really not a limitation at all, and you feel like you can be just as close to viewers as somebody who does have one?
I feel like it's hard to answer because I never really showed my face prior to things really taking off, because I am pretty self-conscious about myself, and I just always wanted to keep, like, I used streaming as an escape originally. I didn't plan on it being a job. I did streaming as an escape from like real life stuff. It was like, okay, if life is going shitty, I can at least stream and disconnect. So that was primarily why I started not showing my face. I was just like, this is a different place to be where I can just be myself and not worry. And then as it started growing and like the ConnorEatsPants person, I mean, it is me, but the ConnorEatsPants brand was something that I could feel like I could be proud of and talk about in person with people in real life and stuff. It started to make me want to show myself more on stream. And that helps with both stuff in real life and on stream, I think, as well, being more connected in that way. Sorry, what was the original question? I feel like I kind of went off on a tangent.
No, I think you just about answered it. When you said that you use Twitch almost as an escape, do you think that a lot of viewers use it the same way?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that goes for a lot of anything on the internet now, social media, YouTube, and Twitch. I think Twitch is definitely a different different aspect of it though, because there is, the opportunity to get into a community based on a streamer. There is an interactivity there that isn't found in other places, and it's a different kind of thing. But as in terms of an escape, the way I used it was like I did not feel very productive in high school. Did not feel like I was doing anything. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was like, well, I like playing video games and I like making people laugh. So I'm going to at least do that. If I'm going to play video games, I'm going to stream and I'm going to try to make people laugh and do something with it. And so at least helped me feel productive. And then it slowly became something that I truly loved. And then now it's my full-time job. And I didn't expect that at first, but of course, like when I started, I was like, man, that'd be awesome. And now it's the case. So now obviously I'm dealing with the struggle between my escape now being my job and being my priority. So there's always a push and pull in regards to the consequences of that.
Do you have any boundaries that you set for the types of relationships you have with your viewers?
Yeah, I think there's I've become close friends with a lot of my original viewers that were there. Probably when I had like less than 10 viewers. They're all like my mods now. I talk to them very consistently. I'm good friends. I would consider myself good friends with a lot of them. Now that it's on a much larger scale and I'm not forming the relationships as personally, I definitely noticed that there are some that seek that in streamers and like I don't know, reach out and talk to me as if like my counsel is best for them, and it's hard to tell what is genuine versus what is like just seeking my attention because they view me as some sort of figure or what. It's hard to tell, and it certainly places you in a tough position of wanting to help but also not open up a can of worms where suddenly you're everybody's counselor trying to help them with things. But obviously, like I care about each person that watches me and engages with my stuff. It's just at a certain point, there's like boundaries do need to be set on what's okay to message me about, what's okay to talk about around me and bring up to me, I guess.
Do you feel that those boundaries have become more strict with your increase in viewership?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think for a variety of reasons, but I think mainly because I'm not able to form as close of relationships as I did with some of my early viewers. My early ones that were there for me the whole way through. I mean, as I just said, I became good friends with them, but now there's just so many, and it's hard to engage the same way. It's a different kind of engagement and community.
Do you miss that about having a smaller community, a smaller stream?
I feel like I could see other streamers missing it. It's not that I don't miss it, it's that I feel the same way about it still. Like the way I engage with my audience, I still feel is the same way I always tried to. It's just on a bigger scale now, so it isn't possible to be as personal as I might have been before. But I still am doing stuff the same way I always intended, I think.
How do you view your relationship? Do you have boundaries in relationships with other streamers? And how does that differ from your relationships with viewers?
It depends. With other streamers and like content creators, I've become really good friends with a good bit of them. I mean, I would say I became good friends with a lot of them, and I was surprised by the openness and the generosity of people that are larger than me. And they're because you kind of get into the space and you're under the impression everybody's gonna kind of be an asshole and be really I'm big, and you would think self-centered, I guess, is what you get out of celebrities and stuff like that. But then once I actually started interacting with these people, people were very nice and supportive, and I was like, it kind of inspired me to do the same with people smaller than me now. It was much more kind than I'd expected stuff to be.
Do you think that networking with other streamers is an important part of growing on Twitch?
For sure. I think I'd be wrong to say otherwise because networking is definitely what catapulted me in certain opportunities were presented to me because of networking. However, there's definitely a level where it's pretty obvious that you're trying to use somebody else larger than you for viewers and for attention. You have to be careful in how you present that. Even like on a smaller scale, like smaller streamer scale, when I would have 15 viewers and I'd have another streamer reach out to me that had like 10 to 12 average, or even just same amount, or even a little bit more. It was tough for me to want to collaborate because there was a level of like, are you trying to take the few viewers that I have? Kind of, because at that point I was still under the guise of everybody else is out to get me on the site because people are going to be selfish. But there was a worry there, and if I was a small streamer now, I'd still be kind of, I would say, doing my own thing, just because I want to. That's just how I am. Other streamers could definitely do it different, but the way my stream works and what I think is best on my stream is usually when it's just me. Usually.
Do you find it difficult to sort of parse the difference between what you're saying, which is the difference between like networking and a genuine interaction or collaboration with another streamer, and and then the other side of that is like when one or both people even are kind of using each other for views. Do you find that difficult to navigate on Twitch amongst streamers?
I did not do too much networking before stuff really started growing. When I was smaller, when I rated people that were significantly larger than me, I would, with like 10 or 15 and they had 100 viewers, I would feel almost embarrassed because I didn't want to come off like I was trying to get attention. Like, hey, look, I'm a streamer. Look at me. I didn't want to do that. So I very rarely did that. And even in big streamers chats that I was a part of that community and I was a moderator or something. Like I was a moderator for the biggest Destiny streamer on Twitch at the time, King Gathalion. I mean, he'd be pulling over 10,000 viewers a stream. And I was a moderator for him for a long time. And I never mentioned in his chat ever or to him that I was doing my own stream and stuff. It just, and then once they noticed that stuff was taking off for me, it was a much more genuine, like, appreciation by them and like, wow, like you are really doing your own thing. And they were impressed by that I didn't ever try to use any connection in that way to grow my own brand. And I'm just the kind of person that truly believes that if you put in the work, what's meant to happen will happen. And I think that goes to show a lot on Twitch. However, to answer your question of like, now, like, for example, like, I mean, I recently became friends with like Mizkif and Pokimane and all them. And before there was like, oh, are people just trying to reach out to me because they see me growing and want to take my viewers or something? But now that like I've become friends with these people, it's like they genuinely just saw somebody growing on Twitch that they think has good potential. And they've heard from others that like I'm nice or done stuff like this. And they want to reach out and like be a friend. And that definitely has had a big impression on me throughout the beginning of this year in terms of reaching out to others and doing things with others, whereas before I wasn't always too keen to do that.
Do you think that there are a lot of, or maybe just maybe not a lot, but do you think that there exists sort of social climbers who maybe don't do things the way you described it is you're kind of investing in yourself, you're working on things yourself, and you're kind of have a humble approach to where when people notice you, you're not going to just jump on that immediately and take full advantage of like potentially getting viewers. You're going to be sort of more grounded and humble in response to that, and that's, I think, worked out to your benefit. But do you think that the mentality, I should say, of trying to climb socially and just trying to like get ahead by collaborating with people, do you think that that's common on Twitch? Do you see that a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that what I did is probably not the most effective way to grow, or that that's what most people do. I think it's kind of, as you're implying, a lot of people that do grow do kind of get there from a more, how Twitch people would say, like leeching mentality of like getting themselves in the right circle. And I don't know. I mean, I can't say any names obviously, but there definitely are people that like grow their channels solely by kind of riding off others' coattail. I don't know what the term is, just riding off the success of others.
Yeah.
And those people aren't always bad people. I mean, that's certainly a way to do it. It's just, for me, I know I wouldn't be able to deal with the anxiety of like, oh, these people like this other person better than me. They're only here because this other person isn't live. Stuff like that it weighs on me too much, that even if like I wanted to, I know I wouldn't be able to handle that. Because like there's drama involved with that too, which is an annoying side of Twitch, that, you know, people are always accusing people of, you know, leeching or other things, and it's something I don't really want to be a part of. So I try to avoid it any way I can.
So it sounds like by being genuine, let's say, or being very authentic in your interactions with viewers and streamers, perhaps the benefit of that is you're more comfortable with yourself. You don't feel insecure. You're not second guessing why people are watching you, or you know, like why they're hanging out with you. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's I think as someone that overthinks things socially a lot, like in person, when I came into the Twitch kind of atmosphere, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to make sure that I'm the kind of person I would want to be around on Twitch, and be as friendly and, you know, be genuine instead of trying to fake it for success.
Do you think that's played a role in your success though? It seems to me like it has.
I think it has now. I've definitely had like people reach out to me and opportunities come my way because people have said nice things about me, which I certainly appreciate. But that was never the intention. I just don't. I'm just not built that way. I try to avoid conflict any way I can. Try to be friends with as many people as I can. Be there for people when others might not be. It's just the way I am. I don't mean that in like a oh, look at me, how good I am way, but it's just I don't like conflict. I don't like having conflict with people. And so it I feel like if more people did that, it probably helped them more than they realize.
Do you think that some of your viewers live vicariously through your stream?
I don't know if necessarily through my stream. I mean, it depends on the definition of vicariously. I would say there's definitely like streamers that, you know, they're streaming everything that they're doing. And, you know, if they're not streaming them playing a game, they're streaming their IRL stream to the airport. And then they're streaming after that. They're constantly streaming. I can definitely see that there are people that totally live vicariously through streamers. But in terms of vicariously through me, do you think so? Do you think, like, what would you define as vicariously through me?
Well, I guess what I mean by that is like viewers who they'll go to your stream, you know, they'll sit there, and on some level they're living life through your experiences that you're broadcasting. And it's because they relate to you or they identify with you that they are able to do that. You know, because they're sitting at the computer watching you for hours, and it's like on some level they're getting secondhand fulfillment out of whatever you're doing on stream.
Yeah, I guess so. I've never really thought about that, but I imagine that for a lot of people there's an element similar. I'm trying to relate it to myself because I feel like I can speak as someone that's been both an avid viewer and now a streamer. But the reason I always came to streams is the same reason that I stream. I came to streams because I wanted either something on in the background, something that is funny in the chat that I can mess around in, and basically just forget about my day and relax and have a good time. And so now I try to provide that same thing to others. And so my intention, I would say, is never to, you know, have people unhealthily live through me, I guess. I've always put out my stream to be for people like me that just want that kind of forget about my day, laugh, play video games, and have a good time kind of thing.
Do you think that from your experiences as being a viewer, as being like on the other side of the screen, let's say, do you think that that's helped you a lot with streaming? Because before you even started streaming, right, you were, like you said, you were a viewer for a long time. Do you think that that helped you understand your viewers better by being a viewer yourself for so long, and then thus it helped your stream kind of maybe even grow because of that, because you so well understood how viewers
Yeah.
wanted to feel?
I think for sure that the way I think and the way I stream is partly molded by having been in streams for a long time of people that I like and knowing what like I enjoyed versus like what I didn't and stuff. And I couldn't even tell you what those things are. I feel like it's just mannerisms that I've picked up and the ways that I engage that I might not even be consciously aware of. Just it's just kind of my vibe and how I do things. I think is molded by a lot of different people that I watched over the years.
How has being involved with Twitch, both as a viewer and as a streamer, how has that affected your social circle and your social situation?
Do you mean like in real life?
Yeah. Or are most of your friends online, or does it?
Yeah, I mean, well, throughout high school, well, I started streaming, I would say, like junior year of high school. And at that time, it was some of my friends that I would play like Xbox with knew that I would do this some nights instead of playing with them. I would stream, and they were like, "Okay, it's whatever." He's having like 4 to 10 people, and I always had like a YouTube gaming channel. I would kind of do stuff on. I mean, I was always doing stuff on YouTube since 2008. I was always making something. But then I really got this itch to do Twitch. I mean the rhyme, but I once I started doing that, few people knew. I would say maybe 5 people in my high school knew, because even throughout school, I didn't really mention that like I play video games. I don't want to be in that circle of people that like, oh, nerdy video game players. I kind of kept that part of me separate. And I think as high school went along, it became a lot more socially acceptable to talk about video games, but I still didn't that much. I was still very much kept to myself on it. But now that I'm out of high school, I would have been I would have been finishing up my second year of college now. I like everybody has kind of heard like where my career has gone, and I have a lot of people asking me about it and really enthusiastic about it, which I think makes me a bit more comfortable socially in real life, because I mean, I've always struggled with like anxiety and social anxiety in certain ways, but now that I feel like I have a direction, I guess, for what I'm doing with my life, and I'm proud of what I do, it's easier for me to feel comfortable, because I feel like I have I don't know. I think that goes for anybody that has like knows what they're doing and has stuff figured out in some way. You are more confident and you're more aware of yourself than you were before. And so now that I have something that I'm proud of that I'm doing, it's a lot easier.
Looking
And
back,
it's something that people like actively ask about and think is cool, which adds to it.
looking back on when you first got into Twitch, and maybe even this is going to be kind of maybe like a deep question, but maybe even when you first started YouTube or first started just stuff online that involved growing an audience, why do you think you were drawn to that? Like what made you want to pursue that so much even years ago?
I mean, I started making YouTube like sketches with my friends in 2007, 2008, fourth, fifth grade. And I did it from then onwards. And I think it was just always a passion of mine to make others happy and to make others laugh. And I think later on I realized that was more described as like an escape from everyday life, because as you grow up, it's like, oh, well, the world isn't all fun all the time. So, you want to have these escapes, these periods of distraction. And once, I got older and I began to experience a lot of those negative emotions in terms of like, I developed a bit of social anxiety. I struggled with OCD figured out that I was struggling through OCD late middle school, throughout high school. It became more readily apparent to me that my escape was not always in person with people. And I was more comfortable being online in certain ways. I think that goes for most people that are online a lot. They express similar things. And so I wanted to make my distraction from those things was streaming. I wanted to make that into something that is still productive for others. And that would be in the same position as me, I guess. Because I did the same. I would watch streamers. I would engage in communities. And it'd be an escape. And so I wanted to provide that for others. And that's, I think, kind of like subconsciously what started it. Now looking back, yeah.
You mentioned how the success you've gotten from streaming has, in a way, made you more open about things in real life, because you're passionate about your stream, you're passionate about your channel, and you're proud of it. Do you have any sort of apprehension or anxiety about sort of your online world, which, based on what you're describing, almost sounds like for a long time was this thing that was separate from your real life world?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any sort of apprehension about those two things colliding?
Yeah, no, all the time. It's, I still try to keep as much privacy as I can, I think, for that reason. It's because, like, it's almost on a reverse now, where, like, I get afraid if I ever screw up online, I want to be able to escape back to my real life and just turn off the computer or something. I mean, that's obviously a fear. Not that I do anything bad, but, you see people just get absolutely destroyed on the internet for a mistake, and it's like, oh man, like that's a scary thought. But blending is definitely challenging in a variety of ways, and that, like, going to TwitchCon last year was extremely terrifying. Knowing how I am, I can be socially and can be more quiet sometimes and tense up and not, I would say, like, I'll be in a social situation and then later on be like, oh man, why was I so quiet? Why wasn't I acting like myself? Knowing that would transfer over to being around my online friends at TwitchCon was extremely scary. And I would say definitely for like the first day or so, I was still dealing with a lot of that. And I had a meet and greet and stuff, which I've never done before, obviously. And that was a weird experience. But it was, it's one of those things that you realize later. It's like putting yourself out of your comfort zone and challenging yourself is the most helpful thing that you can do. Because it's not even that, like, you do it and you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Like, I hear people describe that. It's like, no, it was pretty bad at the time, but it somehow, some way, your brain just adapts and you get better and better at it over time.
Having had that experience with TwitchCon and with meeting some of your viewers, does that kind of encourage you and maybe make you look forward to more things like that, more opportunities in real life? Or does it, like, is that something you want to expand on in a way, or do you feel comfortable keeping those kinds of things like a little bit more limited and just having more online?
Yeah, I probably the latter more. TwitchCon for me was definitely more of experience of meeting my fellow streamer friends and making new connections than it was meeting fans, because at the time I didn't show my face very much. People wouldn't recognize me in the hall. They only would recognize me at my meet and greet, obviously. Going forward, I wouldn't say I actively want to pursue more events like meeting fans. I definitely like doing it, and if someone recognizes me, I would want them to come say hi. But I'm not, like, seeking like a huge meetup or anything like that. I think actively, for me, the event experience is hanging out with the online friends that I do have these prior connections with, and being in person with them and hanging out with them, meeting new people and forming those kind of connections.
What piece of advice would you give somebody who maybe is in a similar position to what you were in, like a few years ago, of primarily being a viewer, and maybe they want to start a stream, or maybe they just want more maybe they just want to have more interactions with viewers on some level. Maybe they want to be like a moderator who has a lot of friends, or a streamer. What kind of advice would you give to them, to best achieve that on Twitch?
I'm trying to think. I think for me, treating it like an escape and as something separate from my primary life might have been helpful at first. Whereas, like, I was in high school, and so I was still dealing with the stress of relationships and prom and my IRL life. And, that was obviously where my foremost thoughts were. And then whenever stuff got bad, I would go to Twitch and I would, look up. I mean, I also like Smash Bros. I would look up Smash Bros. Tournaments and engage with that community. And that was my separate escape. And I think using that as my hobby and not my priority was at the time beneficial. So I would definitely say focus on, the stuff that is readily and actively mattering first and foremost, and then treat everything else secondary. However, if your passion lies, of course, with Twitch or something like that, like if you're in my position a few years ago where you're like, I want to do this and I know that I can do this, then keep at it and do what you have to do. But in the way that I grew, it was always trying to keep it as to myself as possible and not wanting to ever come off as like, leeching off somebody else. If that makes sense. It was more of a, yeah. I mean, I had like the thing is, when I started my Twitch channel, I had like a small YouTube channel that had like 1,000 subscribers, that I could direct over to the Twitch. And then obviously maybe 2 or 3 people come from that. I was active in like Smash Bros forums. And so maybe like 1 or 2 came from that. And then from there, it was just, maybe all 4 of those people will be there that night. And I get 4 viewers that stream. And then maybe somebody happens to be scrolling on Twitch and sees that, and I get a follower that day or something. It was always small. And at the time, I did not try to worry about the numbers, because one thing I've realized now is the goalposts always shift in regards to what is good and what is bad. So, back then I'm like freaking out because I hit 11 viewers that day. It was like, wow, that's crazy. And then suddenly that goalpost moves to, oh, I went under 10 today. Like, dang, not even double digits today. That was a rough night. And now it's on scales unimaginable where I'm like, oh man, I was over 1,000 viewers yesterday. I was over 3,000 viewers the other day. Like, what happened? Or now I just dipped to 900. What is, like, it's always, you're always going to second guess yourself. And, that's something I'm still working on now, obviously, and realizing. But if it's where your passion is, then you'll know. And you can't really bullshit yourself on whether or not this is something you think you can do. I think you can find out pretty quick if this is something that you want to do.
You talked about how the numbers can be a motivator, but they can also maybe keep you down in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think someone who's trying to, it almost seems a little bit contradictory, because it seems like in some ways, obviously, if you want to grow a stream, the numbers do matter, but maybe in order to grow it, you shouldn't be focusing on just the numbers. Would you say that's
right.
Something you did?
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely not. It's, I think on my scale now, I deal more with like, I know what works, and I'm scared to try things that may not for that reason. Whereas when I was smaller, I shouldn't have worried about that. I should have just, I streamed Smash Bros. I got 10 viewers. I stream Valorant. I get 3. I'm trying to think of an example of somebody now. Like, that scale the scale there is so different than I think the large scale that, like, you don't hurt yourself by streaming Valorant and seeing if you get new people there. Whereas I would argue, if you're a big streamer that gets 10,000 viewers on Smash Bros. And then you're getting maybe 2,000 on Valorant, there's more of an argument there that that's not a good idea or something if it's your job. But if you're small, I think the best attitude is if you're passionate about it, stream whenever you can, do whatever you can, and put out your best work whenever you can. And if something doesn't work and it doesn't work, then don't do that.
You, for a long time, were streaming to a small audience. You mentioned like 4 or 5 viewers, 10 viewers sometimes. I think a lot of people would sort of give up and maybe be like, this isn't working for me. But you kept going and obviously eventually grew your stream. What was it specifically that kept you going or kept you motivated despite, what to some people might be small numbers, I guess?
Yeah, I honestly, it's tough to tell you looking back because obviously now I have today's numbers to compare to then, and I'm like, wow, like that's crazy. I try to imagine like what I'd be doing now if stuff didn't change, and it's like, man, I don't know. I told myself the craziest thing is at the end of 2018. I mean, when I still had like 10 average viewers, I was like, like if nothing changes in the next year, I'm probably gonna not be as consistent as I am. I'll still stream because I like it, but I'm not gonna prioritize it the way that I do. And then I put in the effort, and then pretty early on throughout 2019, stuff started changing, and it just happened because I gave myself, I think that wall where I was like, if it doesn't change at this point, like I can't devote as much time as I do to it. Not that at the time I was even anticipating it becoming a full-time job the way it is now, but just getting to a point where it was, making an amount of money that is, adequate. Which at the time I only considered, I was like, if I can get Twitch partnership and pull 50 to 100 viewers a stream, then boom, I'm set. Like I've accomplished everything I ever thought I might be able to on the site. And now that I'm like one of the top ones on the site, it's like, oh man, like this is wilder than I could ever imagine. And it just keeps going. And yeah, I would argue it gets easier in a lot of ways once you're on the scale, but that also creates a new set of problems that you deal with.
When you mentioned the effort that you put in, I mean, obviously it's effort in terms of like how much you're streaming, how entertaining you're being, but that effort, you were directing it, you were putting in that effort in the viewers that you did have, right? In the people that were watching, rather than, or like, in other words, were you more focused on the viewers you had at the time, despite their numbers, or was your mind more so thinking like, if only I had this many viewers, or I can't wait till I have this many viewers, or, you know what I mean? Like, were you more living in the moment, or were you more planning ahead, I guess?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, looking back, I think I was definitely living in the moment more, which was good, instead of looking towards bigger numbers. I mean, bigger numbers would be exciting, but if I brought all 15 of my active community members in the Discord to watch that stream, it was a good stream because everybody was laughing, having a good time. I was interacting with the chat, and that was how I measured a good stream, was by how good of a time I had, I think. And I didn't let the numbers, well, I guess in some ways I did let the numbers affect me because obviously if not everybody's there, then it's not what I want it to be. But it didn't matter if I grew with new viewers that night as long as I had a good time. And so I was actively making a good stream for the people that watch me, I think was always my priority.
You mentioned also that, as your stream gets bigger, there's a new set of challenges. What are some of those challenges?
Being scared of dropping off. I think that's a fear at a small level too, but on the scale with so many numbers, it's a bit more concerning. It's dealing with, when we talk about relationships with other streamers and stuff and connections in that way, it can be a little worrying, and making sure you don't come off like you're trying to leech off somebody and, you generally want to interact and do something with someone is all different challenges. Comparing yourself to others, definitely. When I was on a smaller scale, it didn't really matter to me because there's so many streamers on that level that it's like, well, if I grow, whatever. Like, there's so many people streaming to 10 to 15 viewers that it's almost silly to compare myself to others because there's so many doing the same thing, and people just get lucky. It's what you tell yourself. But now that I'm on this scale, it's like if I see somebody else doing really well, there's not jealousy there, but there is like, man, if only I'd done that. What am I doing wrong compared to this person? I'm not as funny. And is it cam? Is it different stuff like that can get to you a lot easier when the stream becomes your primary thing, like what we talked about. Like, now that I'm focusing on streaming is my career and it is my life, I guess. Whereas opposed before it was the escape and the hobby. It creates a different set of motivations in your head, I think.
How do you keep the stream fun and engaging and feeling like a hobby despite this very serious, almost business aspect, the more weight on your shoulders with having more viewers? How do you try to keep it like fun and engaging for yourself and for your viewers?
I think I have to try to continue to think of it as a hobby as much as I can. And whenever I don't, it doesn't do as well. Like, when I'm streaming a game because it is the smart thing to stream, even though I don't enjoy it, it's not a good stream. It doesn't end up going well. I would have been better off not streaming pretty much because the people that came didn't enjoy it. The new people that came did not get the stream experience I usually put out. And it just wasn't good. So if I'm having an off day, like, I don't stream because I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to deliver in the right way. If that answers your question.
Yeah. You're trying to keep the experience authentic and genuine, both for yourself and also because that viewers can tell probably, when you're not enjoying it.
Yeah, like, I can't bullshit if like I'm not feeling up to it that day. But at the same time, there is still that escapism in streaming from if I'm dealing something in real life. That it just depends on the situation, but it can definitely still be an escape for me, and I still try to treat it that way because that's when it's most successful, is when I treat it as a hobby.
Do you ever find yourself using real life to escape from streaming or the online world?
Well, yeah, I mentioned that and how that's kind of starting to become a factor that I'm realizing, is that now that is becoming a thing, rarely, but it is certainly something that can happen. I mean, seeing friends deal with drama and stuff and not wanting to be in the middle of it and not wanting to have to deal with it and just kind of turn off the computer and being like, oh, I haven't watched TV in a long time. What's on TV? Or talking to people and linking up with people. It's I don't feel like I need as active of an escape from Twitch and streaming as I did real life stuff at the time. But I see the same motivations to get away, I guess, sometimes.
I think that about covers it. Yeah, I think we had a good. I think you shared a lot of really interesting stuff from your unique perspective. Like, I think it's really cool that you know both sides of it, and I think that's really valuable, especially as a streamer, for you to know.
Yeah, no, I think that's directly correlated to my success, is being aware of that and acknowledging it. For sure.
Well, Connor, thank you for your time, man. I appreciate you doing this right after your stream and all that.
Hey, no problem, dude. Anytime you need me for anything, let me know. I'm always down. I love your videos.
Cool, man. Yeah, I'll let you know what parts I include too. I'll probably upload this separately as well, like later on.
Oh, cool. Yeah, sounds good. What is the focus of the video? Because the vibe I got from what you tweeted was like the unhealthy aspect of like maybe like a guy to like an e-girl or something. That was the vibe I got from your tweet. What was?
I would say that's a good question. I'm still kind of figuring that out with these interviews. Like, I have an idea beforehand, and then I do the interviews, and then I reassess everything, and I hear what you have to say, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting angle. But so far, I would say it's not really like about girls. It's more so about how what is it like for a viewer and what is it like for a streamer to spend a lot of time on Twitch? What is their social life like? What is their experience like? And also, what is it like with a small streamer versus a big streamer? And what are the
Yeah.
complications and challenges that come with that? So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. Maybe that's not concise enough. So I still have
No, it
a
makes
lot of
sense.
work.
I think the way that you described that, you could make a pretty good video that like there's so many people that hear about Twitch and don't get it and don't know what it is or why people would watch somebody else play video games. From the way you described that it sounds like to me that you could answer that question pretty well
Yeah,
with these
hopefully.
interviews and stuff.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to refine things, but yeah. But thank you, man. This has been a great discussion.
Yeah, and if you want to take the angle on like the unhealthy aspect, there was actually, do you know who Devin Nash is?
Yeah, I've seen some of his videos.
Yeah, I don't know if he uploaded it as a YouTube video, but I know he was streaming it like a week or two ago. He was streaming with Amaranth, who like I would before like define as like the perfect example of like pretend girlfriend online. You know, like you watch this beautiful woman, you know, get her OnlyFans or whatever and all this shit, and she's always streaming. She'll stream herself sleeping. She'll stream herself at the pool or something. That always came off to me as like this kind of unhealthy, almost exploitative kind of thing, at least from my angle watching or hearing about them. But they actually did a whole talk with Devin Nash that gave me a different angle on it, which was like they're shameless, I guess, in the way, because they are actually providing, from their perspective, they are providing advice to these guys that might be lonely and trying to help in other ways. But you can look up that stream if you want and see if there's anything there for you.
Okay, that sounds interesting. I'll probably have to check it out.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Thank you, man. I hope you have a good rest of your night, and we'll keep in touch about like I'll just let you know like what parts I include or something. Not that I don't think you said anything controversial, but
Yeah.
in case just to get your approval, I'll ask you beforehand.
Yeah, for sure. Let me know. It's all good. Thank you.
Yeah, later, man.
Bye.